Hey everyone, I have Victoria Allen with me today, and she is a homeschool mommy of one cute little 4-year-old. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Thanks for coming on and telling me all about homeschooling in the preschool years. I know you have a lot of good ideas, so I just wanted to pick your brain and see what those ideas are. So you were saying that you used to teach preschool?
Yeah, I used to teach preschool and kindergarten also.
Okay.
So have a little bit of background with teaching younger ages that I just kind of apply to what we want to do here for preschool.
So what did you learn from those jobs that you've sort of brought into your little homeschool preschool?
Well, we do a lot of like hands-on learning and just learning by play, but we also have like a farming aspect that I like to bring in, and gardening and stuff like that, because I feel like that's missing in a lot of schools, and that was something that I wanted to be a part of what we do. So we
Tell me
just
more about that. That's cool.
yeah, so we don't have a farm yet, but we just moved to our new house and we have space now. So we're going to get some mini goats and chickens and bunnies, and that's going to be part of her homeschooling through the years.
Oh, that's so cool. There's this preschool here that kind of sounds like that, and everyone adores it, and the kids are outside playing in the dirt, and there's some giant turtle, and I don't know, they just love it.
Yeah, I feel like it's so important for kids, and it teaches them responsibility and caring.
What about for people that don't really have, land to have a farm? Would you have any ideas for how they could sort of have a similar sort of feel or vibe in their home?
Yeah, it depends where you live. Where we live, it's like really mountainy and foresty. So we have a lot of like free forest schools around where we are, where you can just bring your kids and like it's like all outdoor stuff. So they do a lot of teaching at like local forest like state parks and stuff, and show you the animals, and you can like pet the pelts or whatever and learn about the different animals. So I'm not sure like where people live, but there might be something similar to that around where they are. Or 4-H's also, sometimes they'll let you just go pet if you're not a part of it and your kids are really young like mine, you can just go pet the animals and look at them.
Oh,
They'll
that's
give you a
cool.
little tour sometimes.
That's pretty exciting. That's neat. Where did you guys move to? What state are you in?
We live in Ben Lomond, which is like kind of near Santa Cruz,
Oh,
California,
okay, okay.
but like up in the mountains.
Oh, neat. That's cool. I am not
Yeah.
in the mountains. I am in a neighborhood. Very neighborhoody neighborhood. Packed with people. Um, cool. So what kind of philosophy do you have for early childhood education? Because I'm sure as a preschool and kindergarten teacher, you have your own developed philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, for her age, it's really just like I go with what she's interested in. And I'm not really worried about hitting markers or something, like to make sure she can do all her letters before kindergarten or something.
So
Like,
tell me why, because a lot of people are super concerned with that. So I'd be interested to hear your
mhm.
perspective on that.
Well, I've just seen so many kids over the years, like everyone's brain is different and we all get there in different ways. And sometimes like learning, I mean, all the time, learning styles are so different. Sometimes it takes a while to learn yours and develop yours when you're so young. So it's kind of like I'm learning too, just as much as her, because I'm trying to learn what is her best way for learning. So I'm not really worried about her reading late, because I'd rather her love reading when she gets to that stage than be like annoyed that she has to keep hounding this over and over again and like hate it by the time she gets to the point where she can read by herself.
Yeah. And
Um,
what about the whole reading thing, since you mentioned that? So that's a big thing for a lot of people with preschool is getting prepared for reading basically and learning all their letter sounds. And there's a big push for that in the preschool years. I think that's why people ask about preschool, how do
yeah.
you do preschool and homeschool? So I'm curious to hear your experience with kids learning to read at different levels and how it works out
hmm
for them.
I'm forgetting the exact age where they say that you shouldn't be worried if your kid doesn't read until then, or like really understand like the recognition of sounds and stuff. But it's I think it's like around 8 or 9, maybe even higher. So we push it really, really early here. It's just something they should be aware of, and we do lots of projects here at home. My daughter is really into activity books, so I'm lucky, but she loves to do projects and learn about sounds and do a project that has to do with the letter. And we do like flashcards that are fun that she gets to wipe off the marker and draw the A and repeat what it sounds like and say the words that start with that. So we've been doing that a lot. But boys are a lot different too, and they learn a lot differently. Like they need way more hands-on, I feel like. Not all, but like generally more than girls do. And they're usually a little slower to pick it up. And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that they're like slow. They're not slow. Everyone is going to pick it up when they're ready to. And when they're ready to, you'll just know. Like my daughter wasn't interested in the flashcard thing for a long time, and then all of a sudden she was just like, let's start doing these, and she took them out, and I was like, sweet, we can use them now.
That's cool. That's really nice. What other stuff are you doing? Are you doing any other sort of reading prep things besides this?
Yeah, we've been doing a little bit of math, which for us, that's just mostly recognizing her numbers and writing them out. But also we have a little play kitchen that she likes to swipe things. It like has like a little windy thing, and you can swipe the items through and it makes a little beep. So we like put, fake food out and put little dollar amounts what they are and give her a handful of fake money, and she has to just like match up like how much money she has and learn when she's going to run out. So pretty soon here, we just got it for Christmas, though it's pretty new, but pretty soon here we're going to have some homeschool friends over. They're older, and do a little fake store, so we can learn money counting and make it fun with additions and stuff.
Oh, that's such a fun idea. I feel like a lot of the stuff, especially when they're little, it's a lot of just interacting with them. And they want to interact with you, and they want to know about the grown-up world, right?
Yeah.
Shopping and money and all of that. So, and they're happy. I feel like they're just happy to do it if they're hanging out with you. So
yeah,
that's
totally.
A lot of it. That's kind of some of my concern with a lot of the online. And I use online stuff. Don't get me wrong, we definitely do. But it's just I get a little concerned sometimes when I feel like it's almost a replacement for interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of these, there's online curriculums, and they're just like a full curriculum.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, because all the stuff that you're mentioning is there's a lot of interacting, and it seems
and real life application that matters too.
Yeah. Yeah. And what other kind of things do you guys do? There's some math stuff, some reading. You guys do art projects or?
Yeah, my degree's in art education. So we do a lot of art here, but she's super into, we try to do everything we learn about, have an art aspect of it, because she's really into it too, which she loves. And we do a lot of nature hikes and like projects, crafty projects, and collecting of things, like little items, and sometimes I'll just put things out and like give her glue and tape and stuff, and she can just like create by herself, see what she comes up with.
I
the only other thing that's
like cardboard. I just collect cardboard and make they've made all kinds of things out of cardboard.
Yeah, it's so fun, and they have like so many good ideas that you're just like, whoa, how'd you come up with that? You're only 4.
The funny thing is they still do. My son is 12. What's the last thing that he made? He made a scooter, a razor scooter, but fully functioning, and it fit my daughter's doll. So it's like he still enjoys doing it. It's just very complicated now.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It was really cool. He didn't use a tutorial. He just did it.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. A lot of his stuff has been tutorials, and they've still been very cool. But
Yeah.
this was very impressive, you know.
My brain isn't mechanical at all, but luckily my husband's is. So she likes to spend time out in the garage too with him and like tinker.
It's so cute. That's a fun thing with little kids too, is you can give them, I mean, you got to be careful, but you can kind of start a nail in some wood and give it to them for them to count.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's a lot of cute stuff like that.
So another thing that we've been doing, like a little bit of science. I mean, we don't really hit science hard at 4 years old, but when it's rainy out here, we'll like make some boats and stuff at home and like bring them out to puddles or to streams where it's going downhill and like test out which boats work best and stuff and talk about why they do. But yeah, that's just something we did kind of recently, so it's fresh in my mind. But yeah, I mean, we just kind of come up with it as we go because it's preschool and most of it is going outside and playing with friends that we have that homeschool or just friends, you know, that have young kids too.
Yeah. So it sounds like you don't really need to be crazy. You don't need to have a curriculum. You just sort of maybe introduce them to letter sounds and writing the letters and the numbers and maybe some counting, but try to make it like part of a game or fun.
Yeah, totally. I want her to be excited for starting kindergarten, not like annoyed that we've been doing this, you know, like counting letters or something, which she is. She's totally excited about it. So I feel like that's good.
Yay, mommy win. It was such a cute time. It flew by though for me. I think like when I taught them both to read when they were really little, and I definitely was a bit of a crazy lady about it, and they didn't enjoy it. They did. So it's good.
We learn as we go.
It's good to talk to somebody, you know, that has a very positive approach to it all. And I was just like, we're doing it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it, but
I was homeschooled for 1 year when I was little, and it was like that too. But it was all like just these like flat workbooks, and I thought it was so boring.
When you were little, or when she?
Yeah, when I was in 3rd grade, I was homeschooled, but that's what the curriculum was. It was just these little flat workbooks that you had to write in, and I just thought, oh my gosh, like, can I just go out my window and like run to the nearest school?
But just in 3rd grade, you were homeschooled?
Yeah. Then my mom was like, no way, this is horrible. She put me back in school.
That's funny. With it, you know, it's I think about that too because you're talking about the science stuff, and and whenever I look at a science curriculum for anything under high school, it's just often very boring because that's what it is. It's just some worksheet that they just ask a bunch of random questions.
Yeah, and you just have to like read a little story about some guy, and then that's like all you learn about what they had contributed.
Yeah, and I don't know
like
if
activity.
you learn that much either.
Yeah, I don't know. I like trying to find ways to make it interesting. Like even if it doesn't like directly relate, like, you know, like the gravity and the apple thing. Like you could do so many projects with apples and like gravity and like the egg dropping that they do for way older kids in junior high. Like young kids could totally get into that from just a slide.
Yeah, there's so many fun things. And it's interesting because we just signed up with a charter for the first time ever. My kids are 9 and 12. And it's interesting because the charter wants to quantify everything. And, you know, the way that you're thinking is very much how I've always thought, like, hey, let's do this project and that project. And let's try to make it interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, this whole charter school journey has got me comparing, you know, the two approaches again. And I definitely think it's a better approach to not make everything quantifiable. You know, what did you cover this week? What did you cover this month? Can you write it down and with a nice, neat description and tell me what you did? not really. We spent a lot of time making these cool boats, and we had a really neat discussion, and I think it grew her brain.
Yeah, and they'll retain that information.
And I think for little kids, I don't really think that you should have a science curriculum. I think that's a way, because science is just the world. It's just learning about the world. And I think you kind of kill it when you have when it's too structured.
Yeah, I feel like preschool should be play-based learning mostly, like blocks and magnet tiles and stuff like that. Like they learn so much just sitting and playing with that by themselves and like learning why, oh, my thing fell down that I created, and then figuring out how to fix it so it doesn't do that next time. Like that's all really important stuff. We overlook that as adults because it just seems trivial to us, but it's not trivial. They're like really important concepts.
Yeah, I know.
Growing brain.
Starting from scratch, and they have a lot to learn. What with you being when you were a teacher, what sort of things would you notice with maybe parents that were too eager to have their kids learn really early, or then maybe on the other end of the spectrum, parents who just weren't terribly concerned about it? I don't know.
Yeah.
What did you notice in the kids? Did you notice anything interesting?
Well, it also like varies with personalities of kids too, so it's hard to kind of lump it together. But parents, I did work at a school where most of the parents worked at a UC and were professors, so they did like really hound like the learning and the recognition and like learning to write and to read and to count. And the kids were stressed out too. Like I feel like the parents were stressed out and the kids were stressed out too, and they didn't think it was very fun. They just knew they had to get it done, and like memorize it.
Like at kindergarten, or are we talking preschool?
Kindergarten. Yeah.
I think that's sad. I don't think that's necessary. And I do like teaching reading on the earlier side, and I know there's a lot of thought with that, but I do think it's sad when you have kindergartners and they're so stressed out. And
yeah, it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, and they do this thing here, and I think they do it in a lot of places, where they'll give these kids these huge lists of words to memorize.
Yeah.
Which I find strange. It seems like if you're learning phonics, you wouldn't really need to have that approach of, memorizing 50 words a week or something. Just huge lists that they give these kids.
Yeah, I don't really see how that's helpful unless they're able to apply every word that they're learning. I mean, it's just kind of pointless memorization, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird. And then one of these poor little kids are all stressed out, and some of them have homework.
Yeah, homework in kindergarten is crazy to me.
Crazy, and it is. And then one of my neighbors was frustrated because her daughter didn't have enough homework. You're
like, give her some blocks. That's homework. She can learn from that.
And this also reminds me of, I made a recent video about there's this NPR podcast where they talked about regulating homeschool. And if you believe that kids should play, and you believe they shouldn't really be doing a lot of work when they're 4 and 5 and 6, but someone else thinks they should, and they're regulating you, kind of a problem,
Yeah, that's a huge problem. The main thing is, like, you don't want your kid to grow up and be a repeater. Like, you don't want them to just regurgitate stuff. You want them to be like an inventor and like be able to think for themselves and come up with concepts and like ways of coming up with new things that we don't have yet. And they can't do that if they don't have the space to create and to learn and to just like see what's around them and see how to use them in daily life. And that's really important in the early years too, to have that time to just figure all this stuff out. So I feel like in our culture, we kind of overlook that and think, oh, they're just playing all the time. They're not doing work, but they're doing really good work that a lot of us are lacking in our society because we're regurgitators. We just learned what we learned, and we know how to do the concepts of what we learned in school, but we don't think for ourselves. So there's like fewer of those types of jobs, and people like really doing cool things. And I'd rather my kid play longer and be one of those, Yeah,
and I think what you're saying is actually a pretty profound a pretty profound thing. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying something along the lines of, well, if everything is super structured and you're doing all these worksheets and what's the right answer, and this whole focus of the right answer,
Right.
as opposed to creating projects and doing things and figuring things out and really engaging your brain, you're going to create two different types of people and what kind of person you want your child to be.
Yeah, totally.
It's interesting how people don't seem to notice that's the result of kind of what's done. And whenever I question myself, I start to look at it again and I say, no.
Yeah.
Not good. I don't like it.
No. Yeah, totally. And other stuff just comes like naturally too with them. You know, I feel like my daughter's only 4, but she hangs out with me and I don't talk to her like she's 4. I talk to her like she's an adult too. And she uses huge words all the time, sometimes wrong, a lot of times wrong, but then we'll have a talk about it and she'll learn. And everyone's always like, we thought she was so much older. She's also tall, but like, we thought she was so much older because of how she talks. And I'm like, no, she just, like, she's really social and she likes to soak up real life stuff because that's what we do.
Oh, very cool. Oh, wait, one more last thing I wanted to ask you. I didn't ask you. What made you want to homeschool?
Besides all the mandates going on around here, just the curriculums that I went like back when I was teaching, even then it just felt stifling. And knowing, you know, what goes on behind the scenes and all the politics at schools and stuff, I was just like, yeah, I don't feel like being a part of this. I feel like having more freedom and like creating a different space where my kid can learn the way that's best for them. And if I, you know, I'm pregnant right now, but when I have multiple kids homeschooled, you know, I can tailor each kid's learning style to make sure that they're getting the most out of what they're learning instead of the one way that it's taught at school, which might not be either of their way of learning.
And the teacher doesn't really have a lot of say over how.
No, they don't.
You just like, here, do it, right?
Yeah, and you have to hit, you know, these frameworks and guidelines, and you'll get in trouble if you don't. You really can't go off the rails too much with your creative ideas. They'll rein you back in.
And as we were saying before, but you know, it's funny, you know, so if they don't hit all those benchmarks, then it's a problem. But is it really indicative that they are succeeding by hitting these benchmarks? Is that really a good thing, or would they actually do a lot better if there was more creativity? Would they grow faster, but just in a different direction?
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many aspects too. Like, some kids have learning disabilities. Some kids are so far ahead in math and so far behind in literature. And some kids are the exact opposite. And you can't like call those kids like falling like behind or dumb because they don't get the one thing, you know, because like they're a genius in the other thing. Yeah. It's just like really hard. And the teachers have huge amounts of kids. They can't really tailor things to each person. So yeah, I like the small setting and being able to do that.
I can barely handle 2. I don't know how teachers handle like 3. I don't know how. Yeah,
no, it's hard.
It's really difficult. Well, thank you so much, Victoria, for coming on today and letting me pick your brain.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, have a great day. Thanks.
You too. Bye.
Bye.